Hello, my name is Jordy Izzard, and I am Senior Associate Director of SAIS Alumni Relations. And I have the pleasure today of being here with Anne LeBourgeois, who graduated from SAIS in Washington, D.C. in 1980. And today's date is March 24th, 2017, and we're just going to have a little bit of a conversation. So thanks so much for being here.
Great. Thanks, Jordy.
Yeah, and why don't we just start with what originally brought you to SAIS?
Okay. Well, I guess it started from the beginning. I grew up in a very international family. There are many diplomats and naval officers in my family. My father was a naval officer. My brother was a foreign service officer. And always growing up, we learned about international travels and experiences, and foreign languages for that matter. So this came very naturally to me. But what really prompted me, in my high school years, my father was posted to Belgium working for NATO. And I attended an international school where I had friends from all over the European countries and really had a wonderful experience there. And that prompted me to move on to education in at Middlebury College, studying languages, and I stumbled onto Chinese history at one point and became really fascinated by this part of the world about which I knew practically nothing. So following on my graduation, I worked for 2 years in Washington, D.C., but I really wanted to jumpstart my professional career and move into and gain some additional knowledge that would help prepare me for a life in the corporate world, international business specifically. So when I looked around at various programs, SAIS just seemed the natural choice for me.
That makes a lot of sense. That's a great story.
And P.S., my brother also went to SAIS. 2 years ahead of me, so
that's
my
great.
brother Julian.
And where is he right now again? Remind me.
Julian was a foreign service officer for many years, and he still lives in Washington, D.C.
That's great. Tell us when you started in 1978, what are your memories of being a student at SAIS?
Well, what struck me first was just the vibrant intellectual atmosphere. I mean, I was coming in from 2 years of working in Washington, and I just loved the debates and the discussions, and the peer group was just terrific, with people in from all parts of the world and all different backgrounds. So I really enjoyed that a lot. For me, the professors that I had were just really transformational. We had Jim Reardon Anderson, who's heading the China Studies program, or the premier China history professor at that time, Doak Barnett, who was a legendary figure, and many of the economics professors, which for me enlivened the topic of international economics. I had some macro and micro at the university level before I came to SAIS, but never did it come alive until I started taking international trade and some of the more interesting parts of the international economic studies. Yeah.
Terrific. And what else do you remember? What was kind of going on historically?
Historically, it was kind of a tough time in Washington in 1978. It wasn't an easy time, but for me, being in an intellectual environment like that really was a great place to be for 2 years, and that it really did jumpstart me into my career.
Well, terrific. And on that note, when you graduated from SAIS, how did your career start, and how did it evolve?
Yeah. Well, it was interesting. In those days, I decided, unlike many of my family members, that I really did not want to stay in Washington, and I really wanted to go into the realm of international business and have an international career in that realm. So, and fortunately in those days, and probably still to this day, the major banks, international banks, were expanding around the globe. And they also came to SAIS to recruit. So I thought that was a terrific opportunity. So I actually ended up joining a major New York bank, Manufacturers Hanover, which is now 3 mergers later, part of J.P. Morgan.
And did they come recruit
And they
at
came
SAIS?
to recruit at SAIS. And I was called back to come up to New York and had interviews in New York. And it was really the perfect landing place for me because when I joined Manufacturers Hanover, I actually went into a management training program, which lasted about a year, and added just a veneer of the courses such as accounting, finance, and business law that were really needed to become, sort of round up the preparation to become a banker.
And did you start in New York then, or did you?
I did start in New York.
Okay.
I was in New York for 5 years, including the 1 year of training. And then I was placed in the Asia Pacific Division, which had always been the plan. And I was then on the Korea-Taiwan desk, working with our branches in Korea and Taiwan.
And these were all positions in New York?
Yes.
After which you ended up maybe doing other things,
Subsequently, 5 years later, I was posted to Beijing.
Okay.
Where I
was that the first Asian city you landed in?
Permanently. I had temporary assignments in Taiwan and Korea over the 5-year period, but then I moved for 3 years to Beijing. So,
how did you like that?
Well, it was really it was a fabulous experience. It was also tough. Beijing in the 1980s was sometimes a challenging place, particularly for foreigners. But it was an unbelievable experience, and it helped me to build upon the course, all of the background I'd gained at SAIS in Asian studies and Chinese language, and also to be able to apply my banking skills in a very emerging context.
Was Chinese your language at SAIS?
It was.
Yeah,
I took Chinese as well as Chinese for 2 years with Mrs. Lynn Duke, and then we had a very tight group of classmates in our Chinese class.
That's great.
Yeah.
And then after Beijing, where did your career take you?
Yeah, after Beijing I went back to New York, but I always remained in the international division of the bank. And I was in New York for 6 years working on a lot of different problems, not only Asia Pacific division, but I actually got involved in Latin American issues during the debt crisis down there. So the sort of geographic scope of my world increased then. But after 6 years, then I was transferred back to Hong Kong. And I worked in Hong Kong for another 5 years. And for both Chemical Bank and then as we merged into Chase Manhattan Bank. So I was leading a corporate banking team. We had many of the household name corporate clients here in Hong Kong, Jardines, Swires, China Light and Power, the Mass Transit Railway, and also I started a practice to cover the leading Chinese corporates that were starting to come into Hong Kong from China. But it was a great time. We did a lot of, at that time, syndicated loan financings, bond issues, derivatives, and basically my role was to bring whatever aspects of the bank would be beneficial to the client and work out strategies with the client to sort of optimize our relationships.
Terrific.
Yeah.
And is that has kind of brought us to where you are now? Or would you say that evolved further?
That I went back to New York and was in the financial institutions group.
And what year was that around?
Around 1999.
Oh, okay. So we're now at the turn of the century.
Yes.
Okay.
So I had actually been in Hong Kong, both sides of the handover when Hong Kong was returned to China, and it was a really fascinating time to be here in Hong Kong. But then left and went back to New York in 1999, and I stayed with the bank 2 more years until 2001, ironically, just about a week or two before 9/11, and decided after 21 years that that was enough corporate banking for me. I transitioned into some very active volunteer roles and board positions. The first one was with an organization called the World Affairs Forum, which is part of the World Affairs Councils of America, and it was based in Connecticut. So I was very active for 6 years, including a term as president. And just kept my finger in the pot. So when I came once again back to Hong Kong in 2008.
That's an interesting year to come.
Yes, it was a good year to leave the U.S. And a good year to come to Hong Kong. So I came back, and in 2009 co-founded a company that is Hamilton Advisors. We're a strategic communications firm. And I'm still, we're still growing. We serve a lot of clients in the financial services space, property, all of the industries that are important here in Hong Kong.
Terrific. And when thinking about current students now at SAIS, having had your illustrious career that is continuing, what advice might you have for a current student today?
Yeah. I do try to think about this a bit because I actually have 2 daughters who are, in the early stages of their careers. And so one is still in graduate school, actually. And so when I think about that, I really think that it's very important to look forward and really decide on the skill sets that you think are going to be needed in the future. And they've changed a great deal since the time when I was in school. So I think really paying a close attention to world trends, global trends, and where the center of gravity in the world, and especially in an international type of career. I also think it's very important in all of the sort of interesting positions that I see. It's very important to be able to have some lateral or horizontal thinking that cross over different disciplines. And I think this is the beauty of both a liberal arts education and also the kind of education we get at SAIS, where we can explore many different disciplines. At the same time, I think it's very important for students to identify an area that they're really passionate about and drill very deep in that area. So develop one particular area of expertise or high-level skills that they can apply and really take with them, and especially when you're looking for, securing interesting positions in your career. So have something that you really own. And I alluded to this, but, both do something that you're passionate about, but I also think increasingly people are focused, young people are focused, and I think this is great, on doing good as well as doing well. So really contributing in an area where you feel you can make the world a little bit better place, make your company a better place, make a company contribute to the world in a positive way.
Well, thank you so much, and thanks so much for being here today.
Okay, thank you, Jordy.